It is Orktober, and you know what that means? We're going to add another thing to this Ork collection that I've been working on for quite some time now. I know this army does not seem particularly big. I did have a massive Ork army back in the day, but it was painted absolutely terribly, like just god awful. I took on that same mentality that most people have when painting orcs, which is you're gonna have 150 boys. It doesn't matter what each individual one looks like, and I just destroyed them. With this project, when I decided to come back to orcs, I wanted to not follow in my own footsteps. I wanted to change everything, and I wanted to put as much effort as humanly possible to each and every model, which might sound stupid, but I'm really pleased with the results I have on the small number of units that I've already completed. So I have my big kind of armor cast scale stomper that I did for last Orktober. Very cool thing. It still has a pair of giant back banners to do, and eventually we will get around to getting them finished and glued on, and it'll be very epic. We've got a couple of death copters here, 6 of them in total. 2 units of 20 boys, and each boy is like 4 or 5 layers on their skin. They look really nice, sharp teeth, glistening gums, beady eyes. They look really cool, and it's just kind of standard. I want to continue. We've got a mega boss with his mega armored knobs there. We have a stand-in for Gazgul Madork Thraka. Can't remember, it was Cromlech. Cromlech sent this guy out to me years ago, and I got him done. We've got a unit of tank busters here from the original Kill Team set. In today's video, it's time to add a piece of armor, and for that I'm going to choose the humble Battlewagon. This is an epic kit, and a kit that when you see it on the tabletop doesn't have most of its parts on it. Usually all those extra bits are kind of left off because if you glue them on then it's more for you to paint. I don't follow that mentality, especially for this project, so I'm going to add all the bits onto it as humanly possible. I'm going to paint them all up to the highest kind of standard that I can, and have this really cool centerpiece tank for my army. Probably won't be the last battle wagon for the army, to be truthful, but you know, we'll start with one. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to seeing that. Let's dive in. So I actually got this battle wagon built on one of my Twitch streams about a year ago now, and it has sat on my orc shelf undone and unloved since then. So it's about time that I got this thing sorted, and of course Orktober is a great excuse to get it done. So step 1 was gluing all of the kind of separate parts onto something more manageable. I used these little wooden painting handles, and I just super glue the parts directly to that. That way they can just easily just pop off when you're finished. I also found this awesome miniature in my bits box a couple days ago. Threw him onto my orc shelf. He's a 97 metal orc Gretchen. He's just a really cool little piece, and he was kind of going to waste, so I decided to hell with it. So I clipped off the tab on the bottom of his base, glued him to one of these handles. I'm going to paint him up like one of the crew and glue him on somewhere at the very end, just so he gets used. No point in wasting an awesome model like that. Great opportunity to use it. Step 1 is of course going to be priming this. Usually I do use rattle cans for priming, but the weather today is torrential rain.
Don't make unnecessary journeys. Don't take risks on treacherous roads. So
I just grabbed some airbrush primer and I just got to it. So I hit it with a solid coat of a very matte black, and then I hit it with a little bit of white as a kind of zenithal, a little bit heavier on the crew because I'll be using some contrast to kind of block in those colors, and then a tiny bit across the kind of hull of the tank and stuff. Not sure if that was actually required, but I did it anyway. Obviously taking my time with the white. I don't want to overspray it. You can see it just slowly kind of come into contrast with the white spray. But like I said, I'm not going for a crazy solid coat, just something so that when I hit it with a contrast later, some color actually shows up. So if you guys watched my Ork Stompa video, the armor cast one from last year, you'll know that I do like getting the base coats of the red armor on with an airbrush, and I start with just kind of a rich brown color, which is a great undertone for the reds that I'm going to hit it with. It's just a really nice place to start. So I just hit the entire kind of armored part of this tank with a nice brown spray. And then obviously all the extra bits, all the extra kind of turrets or the claw and all those bits need to get hit as well. So make sure you give them all a solid coat of brown. And then we are just going to come in with some red paints, and we are going to go through a simple kind of like triad of red paints. I actually used pretty much nothing but army painter paints painting up this entire thing. So these are just their simple air paints. While I have you guys here for Orktober, I thought I would very quickly talk to you about some of the amazing ways that you can help support this channel. Make sure you're liking the videos that you watch, drop comments if you have anything to say or any questions you want to ask, and make sure you're subscribed. The other and most important way to support is, of course, to check out my Patreon linked down below. With Patreon, you get access to a whole host of extra benefits. You get access to a private Discord server, and on that server, we do awesome things like host painting competitions, monthly challenges. It's just a great community to be involved in. Also, we are starting to give away monthly giveaways with any level tier. This month we are giving away a beautiful Knight Questoris. If you'd like a knight added to your collection, check it out below. Okay, now let's get back to painting this battle wagon. I know I pride myself on not showing airbrush stuff that much on my channel because not everyone has access to it, and I don't want people kind of turned away by the fact they can't follow along with the guide. But this isn't exactly a guide. This is just me showcasing one of the things that I'm doing. So therefore, I'm going to use all the tools in my arsenal, which means I will reach for my airbrush when it is appropriate. You can never escape the brush when painting. So now it's time to block in some of those extra kind of odd panels that exist across the entire tank. And for this, I'm going back to the same black paint I used through the airbrush for the base coat, that super matte coat. And I'm just going to go for a selection of the kind of sticky outy panels that exist, including that kind of gnarly teeth symbol that goes across the entire dozer blade. I'm going to hit that with black paint as well, and it's going to look really, really cool. You can see the quantity of black that I've added to the miniature. I tidied up the kind of the wheels and the track section with black as well while I was at it. Obviously to break apart the red, and already it makes it look a lot kind of neater and tidier. And I'm getting really excited for what this tank is going to look like. Next was a dark silver paint for kind of some of the accent colors, the diamond plating, kind of handlebars and stuff like that. And any of the extra details you think kind of across the model that you think needs a little bit of silver paint. Obviously the cannon, the stick bomb launchers, the pole for the periscope that's there as well. That's one of the really cool things that a lot of people don't realize is that orc head symbol that's on that piece in my hand right now. That's actually a periscope, which I just think is really cool. There's some orc down there who watched Das Boot too many times and has decided he wanted a periscope on his giant battle wagon, which I think is pretty cool. Some brass details were then thrown across the model, kind of exhaust tips, some bandings on some of the weapons and stuff. Just another color, breaks it up a little bit. It makes it look a little bit more ramshackle, which is definitely the orc style of doing things, and it looks really cool. From here, we now go to a kind of a really kind of beigey color, kind of a sandy beigey color. And we're just using this as a base coat for all of the kind of orc glyphs that exist across this entire piece. There is a few, not as many as you would think on such a large miniature, but definitely go and try and hunt them, make them stand out, paint them, add that extra little bit of effort and detail. And the kind of paint job at the end will reward you. It's super cool to see all these bits done across a piece. Now, usually this is my favorite step of painting miniatures, which is transfers. I love transfers. I will never stop raging or raving about transfers. They're so good. And I mentioned earlier that I pretty much stuck to army painter paints for this entire tank, and they were going very, very well, and I was very, very pleased with them. But there was a bizarre reaction to my transfers, which I found kind of weird. If anyone can explain what happened in the kind of comments below, please do let me know. But basically, I went through the normal kind of motions that I go through when applying my transfers, which I cut out all the ones I want. I ended up putting 16 transfers on this battle wagon. And I just used some micro set to kind of prep the piece, put it into place, use something sharp to make sure that I can kind of manipulate a little bit and make sure it goes into exactly the kind of where I want it to go. I use cotton buds to kind of press the transfers down to make sure I remove all that moisture and all that old micro set from it until it's fully dry. And then I give it a coat of contrast medium. It's kind of like my secret weapon, that contrast medium. But look what it's after doing to that entire panel. It's discolored the whole thing, which kind of really upset me at the time. I was like, oh no, I was really trying to get a really nice result with this, and something's after going horribly wrong. So the only solution that I could think of is breaking back out my airbrush and getting a matte varnish there and going over the entire piece with that to help try and blend these transfers in again and try and repair the damage that this weird reaction that happened had fixed that. So a bit of mumbling there. And it did for the most part remove the discoloring around the transfer, but the actual transfer itself, the edges of the transfers still kind of stuck out a little bit. They didn't blend in like they normally do. So my transfers was a bit of a fail on this tank. I think at the end, once the weathering was in place, the chipping that I'm doing now with a little dry brushing, I add some nilic oxide to it later. We'll talk about the nilic oxide when I get to it, so I'm still not 100% sure that was the right choice. It helps blend it together. You can see the kind of flat red that I achieved here on the tank. And once I got my flat dry brush out with a bit of silver and I started dry brushing across all these kind of edges, it cut all the bolts. Those teeth just started to kind of pop. It looks like I spent a lot of time edge highlighting it. I did not. It's a very simple kind of dry brush of silver. It's very orky. It looks really cool. Here's how the entire front dozer blade looks compared to the side. Super flat, dull red. Turns around, pops. Looked like I spent kind of loads of effort and time on it. I didn't. I just really like this. Here's a couple of passes across the claw, and you can see the absolute difference that light silver dry brush does to this piece. It just makes it come alive. Really excited by that. I'm really happy with that result. Okay, now like I talked about with that periscope, obviously I blacked out all the lenses. But I didn't just do this on the periscope, I did this on every lens I could find. The crew member holding his binoculars and any like panel lights and stuff that existed on the side of the tank. I hit the whole thing with the black. And then I just did the kind of crescent moon of a darker green, a brighter green, a dot of white in the opposite corner, and a bit of gloss varnish to make them stand out and make them look awesome. It's a very quick technique. It's one I've been using in a lot of videos lately. Just, it makes it look like you put loads of effort in, but you didn't. But these are the kind of details that we talk about at the beginning of the video, where a lot of people won't even put this periscope on. They'll just leave it off, and if they do glue it on, they won't paint it up properly, and it's such a shame for such a glorious tank to kind of be forgotten. Okay, so I'm kind of in the kind of midway of this piece, so I'm gluing all of the extra parts on, and we have the Battlewagon as it currently stands. It looks incredibly menacing, really cool. It's looking a tiny bit flat still. It's not really popping as much as I want. And in my head, I'm thinking that the crew will fix that. And once I get the crew all painted up, then we're going to have this really nice kind of poppy tank. And for the most part, that did happen. I did really enjoy painting up the crew. I did actually spend quite a lot of time making them pop, making them look really nice. Like the skin itself, if you don't include the two kind of undercoats, it's like 5 stages on the green, and just for the skin to pop right, it's 3 stages on the red cloth, it's 2 stages on everything else. And I just put in the effort and the time because I really, like I said at the beginning, I want my orc army to be really nice. I want it all to pop. I don't want to leave anything behind. You know the thing where you tell yourself, I'll get to that later on, I'll come back and paint that little detail later. I don't want to leave that stuff behind. I want to paint it all now. So like I said, I kind of speed painted it through this crew and put in as much effort as I could. And I think I ended up with some pretty nice results. But we now come to that exact bit that I was talking about, which is the nilic oxide. The nilic oxide is an interesting one because I kind of went overboard a little bit with, or else I feel like I went a little bit overboard with the nilic oxide, and I'm not sure whether it did what I wanted to do, which was to make that extra pop of color across the tank, make it very visually interesting, and really kind of pull it all together and make it all stand out and be awesome. I might have ruined the whole thing. And some people might think that I did ruin the whole thing. And I am very curious to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. Obviously, I did my Night Porphyrion video last week, and I had a very similar thing. I got to the end and the gold wasn't really popping, so I just started hitting it with nilic oxide. And I ended up putting on way more than I expected, and I really, really liked the result. So much so that I want to go back to my other kind of Black Templar Knights and go in with some nilic oxide and make them kind of blend and match in with him a little bit more. So nilic oxide was definitely on my brain, and I really wanted to see what it would do. So when we get to it, you guys can put in the comments below whether you think I did a good job with nilic oxide, whether I shouldn't have put it on, whether I put too much on, whether it looks stupid. I've got thick skin, I can take it, so please don't be shy. Okay, as you can see, I did get the base coat and washes on all of the crew. And as you can see now, I'm taking my time and I'm being very careful to layer up that skin. Even those two little runty Gretchen, I'm spending as much time on them as I am with the orcs, making them stand out and look awesome. Even his little wrench is going to get the whole 9-yard treatment and make him look awesome. And obviously this guy is quite a veteran old piece. He's, like I said, a 97. Like 97 is when this miniature was brought out. That's a long time ago. And he was obviously printed back then or press molded back then, and he's only getting a paint job now. He's waited a long time. He's done his dues at the bottom of a bits box, and it's about time he sees the battlefield, clinging onto the side of a battle wagon, firing off his pistol shots. In fact, I'm just going to make up a special rule for this tank, and he can fire off kind of 2 Gretchen shots a turn for free. Pay 10 points for it or whatever. I'm sure my opponents are pretty cool, my friends. They won't mind adding that little thing on. And just to pay homage to that awesome piece. Okay, so this is the crew all kind of done and dusted. Looking pretty sweet. It's looking pretty clean. Very poppy with the color. I did want to make sure that they looked awesome. Look at his little gunner looking awesome. People have the option to just glue that hatch closed and not put the gunner in, which most people would do so they wouldn't have to paint that guy. That's the kind of thing I was talking about at the beginning, these leftover pieces. So yeah, I wanted to put the effort in. I'm really pleased with the result, and I really cannot wait to see that kind of final assembly as I kind of glue it all together. But first, you do have to take a moment and watch me add nilic oxide to this tank and think with an objective eye whether or not this was a good idea or this was a bad idea. Let me know. Okay, so we now come to the fun time. Like I said, I'm adding the super glue. I am putting the pieces, kind of attaching it all for the last time. Like I said, this thing is going to become one solid piece. No like moving it around the battlefield and having gunners fall off or any the turret fall off or anything. It is one solid piece, all done and dusted. At this point, seeing it all together, I quite like the look of it. I'm not sure if it's going to match in with the rest of my Ork vehicles with that nilic oxide, but like I said, you do let me know what you think. But I, for one, am kind of optimistic of how cool it looks, so let me know. That was a true grind. It took an entire day longer than I expected. I gave myself 2 days to paint this thing up. It took 3. It's an absolute behemoth of a piece, but I am so delighted to have one fully painted with all the crew and all the extra gubbins. I even added that extra little grot on the side because it was awesome, and it definitely suits my army. It's all glued together, by the way. I know I showed you at the end of the video, but to me, that's very satisfying to have it as just one solid piece, so that when you put it down on the battlefield, it looks awesome. It gets pushed around. Bits aren't going to be falling off it. Very happy. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. And if there are any other awesome kits out there that you think deserve this kind of attention that I have not done for the channel yet, please don't hesitate to put it in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. I'll see you in the next one.